The Safety Service Director.
Hello, nice to meet you.
All right, so I think we are good to go. Hi, everyone. We're at the Infrastructure, Parks, Recreation, and Public Places meeting. So we've got three things on the agenda tonight. And the first one is why we have the Safety Service Director and the Mayor here, the Elm Avenue Flood Mitigation Project. So we have been given a little information about that, but I figured it'd be good, I'll just kind of let you have the floor and
Sure.
talk about what's going on with that.
So the project has gone out to bid, and what I've kind of provided for each of you here is just sort of a summary of the ongoing cost and the current funding. So not the cost that we've spent for engineering, not the cost that we've spent to get the easements, but just what we have available. So right now, the easement cost is at about $53,000. That's low, that's gonna go up. So we have about 10 more houses to get, they're working through that now. This encompasses about 14, so I would say expect that to go up another $40,000 or so. Construction cost, the low bid came in at $2.936 million. The construction management fee is about $117,000, so total is $3.1 million. For funding, we had secured $1.3 million from the county and placed $800,000 of the city's funding in. Unfortunately, that means that this is a project that came in well over the estimates. That sort of thing has been happening on a lot of projects, not just here, but all across the country. So this is one of those that's fallen into that, and that has left us with a deficit of right now just over $1 million. So the question is sort of in what direction should we proceed, knowing that we have that sort of deficit. I'm not aware of any other additional outside funding that we'd be able to get on such short notice, but
What is the timeline for, like, the drop dead date of when we would need to actually get started on this?
so construction would need to begin in 2025 and be completed by 2026
Okay.
for the county's funding.
Okay.
Now, the sooner we can let the county know what we're doing, the better. There are other projects out there in the county that could benefit from additional funding if we're not able to use this funding.
So not, the best news that we could ever
No, it isn't.
receive about this. I know that it's been a long road to even get to this point of being able to look for bids. So didn't know what you guys had. I had met with Noah about this a little bit beforehand, so I kind of had a decent picture, but do you guys have any questions?
One other thing, just before anybody shares any thoughts, that I think is kind of worth adding here is, as we've gone through this, because our storm sewer system connects to the MSD storm sewer system, they came in and gave different design changes that they wanted to see, and some of those design changes have resulted in some of these increased costs as well. So this isn't just, there was a target and the target got missed, but there were design changes based on MSD comments and needs.
The work that has been going on for a long time, say we can't do this now because we can't cover the deficit. Is there any forethought or expectancy of, like, we have all the plans, we're ready to go, if funding does at some point come back through Hamilton County or Ohio State or anything like that, like, hey, we're ready to go, we'll stay on top of it?
Yeah, so one of the reasons that the easements number is kind of pending and not stopped is so that we would be ready for that, having kind of a better idea of what that market rate is going to be if we do want to pursue the project down the line. Getting that resolved will at least be an agenda item that we wouldn't have to go through again. And the plans, while you may need to update them if this had to be done again in the future, we've got a substantial amount of that work done. So this is something that we can continue to look at, but definitely not the ideal situation.
I don't know where to get $1 million.
I was hoping somebody did, but
I know.
I don't know where to get it either.
I don't have a rich uncle or anything.
So I was looking today, I sent you this, but I don't know if it's actually something that actually qualifies for it. And I don't even know how much you'd have to put up, but there is It's called the Promoting Resilient Operations for Transformative, Efficient, and Cost-Saving Transportation, or PROTECT Act, because you know the feds, they love their acronyms. It's a discretionary grant program to kind of address surface transportation issues, including flooding. It might be more aimed toward like roadways that are used for emergency management, so like state routes that are prone to flooding, as opposed to just a smaller residential street. I forwarded it to SSD email.
Typically, a federal grant on a project like this would cause a lot of issues. You do have a lot of particular items that you need to get through environmental reviews.
Yeah.
You do need to buy America on steel. There's a lot of steel in a project like this. So, you know, it may increase the funding. It would probably also significantly increase the cost as well.
Yeah, that was just the only thing I'd seen that had to do with flooding and
Yeah.
roadways, and I figured I'd mention it.
Yeah.
City of Cincinnati got one for retaining wall failure mitigation for like 10 locations along major routes. But yeah, I think it is maybe more aimed at those major state routes that have having issues, but I'll keep looking. If I see anything, I'll let you know. So I guess the question posed to us would be like, what should we do now? We have $800,000 that has been budgeted for the city. If we don't do this project, there are other projects that would love that $800,000. I don't know, but Mr. Mayor, if you have any comments about this and what you were thinking, I would love to hear your thoughts as well.
It's disheartening with the Elm Avenue flooding project not being able to move forward. I mean, $1 million deficit is $1 million deficit. We've never been so close with the funding. I mean, getting money, the money coming in from the county, $1,300,000 for this project, was a huge win for us. To get to this point, to find out the project is $2.9 million, you know, we've already spent a lot of money. Like you talk about, there was a call for shovel-ready projects years ago. This would be a shovel-ready project, even if we don't move forward with it right now, because quite frankly, we can't. It's a decision of how do we spend $1 million if you don't have $1 million? You can't spend that $1 million. But this project has been, this flooding in that area, localized, has been going on for years and years. It's become much more prevalent. There's also much more prevalent flooding all over the nation. So there are potentially, when you talk about grants or some other funds that come out there, you know, we've had, I think we had a groan, which was part of a grant and part of a loan 20 years ago to try to do some of this. And we couldn't make it happen then. So now here we are 20 years later, the prices and the cost have just went up, you know, through all those years. So now we're $1 million behind. We can put together a total of $2,100,000. That doesn't get us to, you know, the $3,900,000 that we need. So on that part, it is really extremely discouraging. You know, I wish we were coming to you with other ideas and other solutions, but this is the best solution, I think, to eliminate that problem, and we can't achieve it. We just monetarily cannot achieve it. And then you talk about the $800,000. We took $800,000. There's a lot of projects and there's a lot of streets and a lot of work that could have been done if we weren't allocating those city funds to this. So by, I guess, the only way to call it would be to shelve this project. By shelving it, we actually open up the city to, you know, the capabilities of the city to do some other projects that need to be done also. I mean, clearly there's plenty of places that the city can spend, you know, funds that are in place for capital projects and different things. So it opens up a door, you know, you're closing one door down and opening another door of opportunity, and then hopefully in the short-term future, you know, you can't put plans together like this in 24 and 25 and then wait 5 years and then find a grant and say, oh yeah, just use all, because at that point all your engineering and everything's out. But we'd have to really aggressively look and try to get something in the next year, in the next 2 years, that some sort of funding avenue that we could go down to do this.
I know right now the recreational cannabis. I spoke to Mr. Bonzel, and he said he thinks it might bring in a couple $100,000 this year. If we did allocate that to the street fund, could it eventually go, I guess my question is, can street fund money go towards this project?
Some street fund money can go toward this project because it will,
That's the only stream of revenue I'm thinking
Yeah.
that's new, honestly.
the size of the sewer pipe that would go under the streets is a 42-inch pipe, so you are destroying the entire road surface.
Yeah.
Now, that's for about a block and a half. So, could you fund this entire project with street fund money? No.
Right.
But a portion of it you could.
So that might be an avenue in the future, is that those funds.
I have a challenge with that too, because
Yeah.
right now, the pressure is somewhat off all of us because we've been doing some paving and we have taken care of some of the streets, some of the major, and we've got some other that's gonna come rip-roaring back when we're not doing the other streets that haven't been touched for 30 years. And to allocate, funds and say, okay, well, we think, pie in the sky, we got $200,000 coming in from this one revenue source. Let's allocate it all towards this. Well, that's, you have 23,000 people living in this city, and you're allocating it towards one small area. I find it hard to believe that the community would say, that's a great idea, instead of, my street hasn't been paved in 40 years. The whole time I've lived here, I've never seen anything done to my street. And now you're gonna take $200,000 out of it to put, so that's really my big concern with sort of lockboxing
Yeah.
funds.
I
that way.
think probably, well, and this is all hypothetical. Let's say the cannabis money goes to the street fund, and let's say magically we find another $800,000. At that point, for me, it would make sense at that point, knowing we have a whole bunch of money, to use it right then. But that is all hypothetical. So,
Well, there have been
For me-
discussions before, and
Yeah.
council members have brought up, looking at what the community will do to make infrastructure improvements, and that's why we're talking in an infrastructure committee is,
Right.
what will the community do? Now, we have an operating levy that's coming up soon, that has been the same operating levy for how many years? Maybe there's something else that the council members want to look into that. I understand looking into grants and doing your searches online, but it might be that there's a different route that we need to go down where the community members, I'd always said, I'd said from the beginning when I took over as mayor, I said, we have to, as a municipal government, we have to show that we will make the improvements. If you give us the resources, we will make the improvements, and we've shown that. But I don't think in the previous years that the city had been able to show much improvement, and I'm not big on giving money to people, my tax money to people, if they're not doing something that I can see is improved. We're seeing that. So maybe there's a different route that we need to go down that way, and that would be a question that I would ask council members to start looking at is, what should we be doing
Yeah.
to maybe set the future? And with that, you would have a path where you are lockboxing certain funds to go towards certain items. So infrastructure improvements, and, you say this is where that funding's going, and people vote for it and say, yes, I agree, that's necessary, then it's worthwhile.
So that's something I had looked into last year, the year before, about proposing, like a levy. That is one potential source of revenue. Then, of course, this year we had the huge property tax increase,
Yeah.
which made, I feel, the prospect of paying yet more money politically infeasible and hard to argue, especially in a already fractious election year.
We as a municipality, we as the city of Norwood have shown to our residents, at this point in time, we've shown them that if we have the funds, we will put it into our infrastructure. We will improve the community they live in, and that's what they really want.
Yep.
And I understand, I'm definitely not a tax person. I would rather not, I vote no on taxes, but when it comes to things that affect the quality of life of my family, I'm the one that's really willing to join in and make it better for all, so.
I think it's something that for me as chair, I would want to pursue next year if we can get some idea of what might be the best way to go about it. There's different types of levies, I know, and there's different other ways to collect revenue that is slated just to infrastructure. I know other communities in the area have had successful levies that are infrastructure-specific, street-specific levies. So that's something I'm definitely willing to pursue. And if people don't want it, they can put it down. That's something that we as council cannot directly levy. That would have to go to the people of Norwood, and that's how I would want it to be. And I think you're right, in the past, it would be a hard sell to be like, oh no, sure, for real though, we'll use this money for the streets. I know we haven't paved in a while, but we can do it now. We've been paving a lot, we've been doing a lot of infrastructure improvements, and
We've also been making the most of the revenue that we have.
Yes.
We have not been, we've went and used that as, it's matching funds. We're
Yeah, you gotta
working,
use
we're
it like
grabbing
that.
as much free money, as much tax money that's out there that are going out to the communities. We're grabbing that, and we're using our funds, our matching funds, to get something that's worthwhile. And I think that's something that our communities want to see more of. I mean, okay, so give us more matching funds and we'll get more done.
Yep.
They're not gonna, so it's
Yeah.
an important aspect of it.
yeah, and I think that's something, if we want to pursue this, to kind of emphasize, where it's not that we're just getting $500,000. We're basically, that $500,000 turns into $1.5 million because we have that capital to do matching funds to put up for these things that require a certain amount of 10%, 20% matching.
And that's something this administration's done. I mean, Noah's been
Yes.
good at it, and we've paid attention to it. That's what council members said we would do and have worked with us to do. And that's what, quite frankly, all the people that I talked to when we were running for office, they were saying, we need to make the most of what we have, of the resources we have. Let's make the most out of them, and we have done that. We can show that we've done that, so it might be the right time. We've got a huge project coming up with Montgomery Road, with the resurfacing there from Corp Line to Corp Line, with all the pedestrian improvements, all the money, the grant money. We've got money coming in from SORTA, we've got money coming in from the state. There's all sorts of good money that's coming in. We do have to match a lot of it, but there's so many good improvements that can be made. We could, with the right thing, certain actions taking place, this could really make a huge difference in the surfaces in our communities and the actual surface streets, residential surface streets that are there,
Yeah.
so.
And even if we have to leave this project on the back burner, the fact that we can still do so much other stuff with money that we can get from cannabis or from a hypothetical levy, whatever you want to do, I think would be a huge value add to the community for me. But obviously, we're getting beyond Elm Avenue, but I think this is an important discussion and one that I definitely want to have at another committee meeting too, about what we might want to propose to the citizens of Norwood, how we might go about that.
Going back to the original scope of this,
Yes.
which was the Elm Avenue and the determination on where we're going. I look at this as the mayor, and it is the burden falls upon my shoulders to actually make the decision to say, we can't make it happen right now. And we cannot make it happen right now unless somewhere along the line, the finance committee is gonna find $1 million and make it happen. But that's not going to happen. So, from that aspect of it, we're asking the infrastructure committee to look at that, listen to that, maybe have a discussion about it, and then we move forward from there. We cannot hem-haul around because there are a lot of other projects that we can move for. $800,000 goes a long way to a lot of projects. But the decision has to be made, and then we move forward in the other direction with this. I should probably call it, putting it on the back burner. Because there's, hopefully
It's not gone forever, but you have to put a pause on it potentially, because, I don't know where you find $1 million in the next couple months.
We'll put a pause, we'll put a pin in it, and we'll circle back.
Oh, God, don't bring corporate speak into this. What do you, Candace, Alexis, did you have any other comments about it?
Oh, I want to thank you guys for trying to, I know that this was years and years of work, And I know Noah was contacting MSD probably once a month for who knows how long, so, if not more. And of course, I'm sure I'm frustrated for our residents who do live on Elm, because I know this has been a decades-long problem. And I think everyone in this room, I just want to make it clear, I think everyone in this room, if we could figure out a way to do it, we would, because it's a terrible problem to have, and it's not lost on us that it's really.
And it's like heartbreaking to basically get so close and be 33% short. I had two brief questions. One is, so that $1.3 million, if we don't use it, it goes back to the county and they reallocate it. We cannot use it for a different similar project or anything?
No, it's
Okay.
specifically for flooding.
Okay. And is there any chance that MSD would be willing to change their design proposals that have caused the increase in cost?
No, we have had significant discussions with them about
Okay.
that.
I just figured for, due diligence, I wanted to make sure that was clear.
Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. Well, this is frustrating. I'm mad at MSD. I'm mad at budgets. But I think, after looking around, my best course of action is, or the course of action that seems most logical to me is to use that money for other needed projects, of which we have quite a few. It's not that we lack for ways to use this money in a way that will still benefit our citizens.
Yeah, I
Which
absolutely agree
stinks.
with that.
It stinks that we can't use it for this one, though. I know that there are so many projects that are just lined up waiting for 100,000, 50,000, whatever needs for that.
We can still make a lot of good things happen.
Yes. So it's not that we are losing all the money. We still have that money allocated for other things. And I hope that we can do some good things quickly with it, as quickly as it can happen. Instantly. Now. Pave now. Don't, that's a joke, please, if anyone's watching.
I feel like that should be a campaign slogan. Pave now.
Pave now, pay later. All right, so our second agenda item is just the Montgomery Road plans, but I wanted to just switch it, because I know we have a gentleman here, Wyatt, from Green Umbrella. I don't want you to have to wait forever, because you're giving up your time as well. So he contacted Candace, and then Candace forwarded it to me about a project for homeowners and apartments about energy efficiency.
Well.
Yes, I don't want to put words in your mouth, I apologize.
Shall I?
Yeah, please come up and just take a little time. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, no, thank you for making the time for me to come tonight. My name's Wyatt King. I am the director of a program at Green Umbrella called the Greater Cincinnati 2030 District. This is a rather arcane name for a program that's dedicated to helping building owners to decarbonize their buildings in the form of adopting greater energy efficiency measures, in some cases as appropriate, helping them to install on-site renewable energy generation like solar panels. But we also have elements of the program that address clean transportation and occupant health measures in buildings as well, and water efficiency too. But I would say the marquee element of the program is energy efficiency and clean energy generation. Historically, this is a program that has been focused almost exclusively on the Cincinnati Central Business District. But just in the last couple of months, we've made this. So I've been in this role for almost exactly a year. And as part of my coming into it, I engaged with the leadership at Green Umbrella. Some of you probably know Van Sullivan and or Ryan Mooney Bullock, who lead our program, lead the overall organization. Working with them to kind of take a fresh look at the 2030 district, and one of the outcomes of that effort has been to make the decision to completely open up the program to the entire service territory for Green Umbrella, which actually includes 10 counties across the tri-state. Hamilton County is kind of the heart of our activity, but we also serve Butler, Warren, and Claremont in Ohio, and Northern Kentucky and Southeastern Indiana as well. So what we decided to do is, hey, we really want to make this program available to building owners in all of those areas. And as part of that effort, I am now reaching out to communities with which we have some kind of a working relationship to broach the topic of hosting an event, or not event, maybe a little bit, more of a presentation than an event, but like an evening presentation on what the 2030 district is, the kinds of work we do, the support we provide to building owners, and also provide kind of an introduction to energy benchmarking. So some practical value-added material in the presentation as well. Let me just pause for a moment, or maybe the thing to do is kind of just set the context a little bit for what the 2030 district does and how it's organized and how it works with members. Our members, we have 3 categories of membership, the largest of which is building owners. And just a minor correction to Emily, what Emily, you were saying earlier, we actually focus mostly on commercial spaces.
Yes,
And,
sorry.
yeah.
I realized I was focusing on
Yeah.
not homeowners.
Right, but
property
I mean,
owners.
we do work with multifamily buildings as well, but our sweet spot is, I would say historically, we kind of were targeting the downtown business district because the hope initially was to work with owners and managers of large office towers and other very large buildings, with the idea that if they could sort of lead the way on energy efficiency adoption and so forth, that they would pull smaller buildings along in their wake. And some of that has happened. But what we have found, practically speaking, is that, the large corporate-owned buildings and, large corporate-owned office towers downtown don't really need the kind of operational support that we as a modestly sized nonprofit are in a position to provide. They have dedicated facilities managers. They have oftentimes long-standing relationships with third-party engineering firms. And so when it comes to, energy management, they've got it more or less in hand. They also operate on very sort of well-established capital reinvestment cycles, and so they know when they're going to replace, do an HVAC retrofit, or they know when they're going to, adopt when they're going to do new windows for the entire building or what have you, and they're not going to respond, to sort of new information, a presentation by the 2030 district to change that schedule. Also, many of them, the publicly traded companies, they have public-facing ESG commitments that sort of guide these decisions as well. But what we did find is that smaller to medium-sized buildings, maybe in the 5,000 to 100,000 square foot range, that's not a hard and fast number, but that's kind of the just rule of thumb. They really do benefit from membership in the 2030 district in a very practical way because most of them do not have personal energy management experience. They don't really know. I'm sorry.
Pick up some milk on your way.
Yeah, exactly. That is my wife, but she knows where I am. They don't have, practical energy management experience, and they really benefit from things like an introduction to the benchmarking process, an introduction to sort of data management, an introduction to the idea of energy audits and connection to resources to conduct those energy audits when appropriate. they really benefit from the community that we strive to create, which includes not only other building members that are sort of similarly engaged in these topics, but a community of professional service providers, engineers and designers and, in the local community who are actively providing energy management services and building upgrade services. And so it's like sort of this entree that we are able to provide to this whole community of support to help them learn and then implement. And also one of the services, the family of services that we provide is connection to funding information. So learning about, for example, the whole slew of new resources that are just beginning to come down the pipeline thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act. We're sometimes in a position to help spearhead grant applications, which we can, loop in members who are in different categories. Like if we spy a grant opportunity that, applies to schools, for example, if we have relationships with, half a dozen different school districts, we're able to sort of pool them together and work up an application that includes a swath of the community in that kind of way. Or in some cases, we're able to actually form a kind of a purchasing cooperative. And if we have, like a dozen houses of worship, for example, that all need to upgrade their windows or get, insulation and weatherization services, we can negotiate a preferential price for doing them as a block. So that medium-sized building is where we're really looking to make a push to introduce new prospective members to our program and share the kinds of value that we can bring and the support services we provide, and hopefully get people excited about it. What else can I say? Maybe I'll pause there and to see if there are any questions.
So
Are you familiar with Green Umbrella? I probably should have
Yes.
asked that at the outset.
we're familiar with Green Umbrella, and also it sounds like it'd probably be best to help you link with some of our larger businesses and some of the larger developers that are in this area. I was immediately thought of PLK and Ventura with their larger commercial or even some maybe the larger multifamily space. And then we do have like Siemens, UDF. UDF may be one of the ones that maybe has our long-standing stuff with that. I don't know.
Is UDF Norwood headquarters?
Yes, and they're actually doing a huge expansion right now. So
Oh,
it's maybe a good time
Wow.
to be linked in.
To grab their ear.
So I don't know, NOAA or if the city has a list of like larger corporations or property owners or developers that might be best to use this information.
Could reach out to the Chamber of Commerce.
That's what I was just going to say. The
Yes.
chamber would be a good group.
I
to
would
reach out
love to talk
Yeah.
to the chamber, because we're actually kind of in the early stages of hatching a new idea to work with the business community in various communities around, the tri-state, specifically to identify stories of businesses that have made a decision to embrace energy efficiency and green building in some measure or another, and get their stories about why they decided to do that, and how they got comfortable with that notion. And so anyway, without going too deep into that idea, I'd just say that I would love to connect with your Chamber of Commerce. I am also sort of trying to put together a tour, as it were, of local community. I'd love to, if it were possible, to kind of generate, it doesn't have to be huge, but 10 or 15 or 20 property owners who had just an interest in these topics, to get them in a room on some, Tuesday or Wednesday evening or something, and give a proper sort of introduction to the 2030 district, give a quick introduction to benchmarking, and we use the Energy Star Portfolio Manager tool provided by the EPA, which is fairly simple to use and provides a good basic platform for the newly initiated to start benchmarking their property and their energy usage and water. And so just sort of let people know what we're doing and more about our program. I'd love to try and set something like that up too. I think I may have mentioned in my email, like maybe in a community center or a public library or something. So if you have thoughts about, whether there might be interest in doing something like that, I'd be certainly interested in exploring that.
I'm looking something up right now. You guys have ideas?
Yeah, I think Chamber of Commerce definitely to be the initial, because I know they send out like a newsletter quarterly, monthly?
I believe it's quarterly.
Quarterly to all the business owners in Norwood. So that would be a great first point of contact
Totally.
of like any interest, and then they can,
Yeah.
any interest, contact XYZ. and
Absolutely.
we can kind of go from there, and then, a bunch of just people we know off the top of our heads that,
Developers
Yeah.
that are working. And I think Alloy Development would also be a good
That's a great suggestion.
Alloy would.
source, because they work with small business owners, but also they work with other larger businesses. I'm thinking like of medium-sized businesses with like buildings that have a decent-sized footprint that are
Yeah.
like Perry Contracting. I am horrible with estimating areas. But I'm thinking like, what's a big building around here? But I know they would know people.
So we
They're
can-
linked in with the business community pretty well.
No, they have a couple of medium-sized buildings themselves, so.
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
also
it's
their
true.
own buildings, which are older buildings. And like Greater Cincinnati, we have a lot of older
Yeah.
real estate here.
Yeah.
And industrial buildings that are purpose-built, but maybe were purpose-built in the 70s or 80s. And
Right.
there's been a lot of improvement since then.
Yes, totally. It's
then you
really
see
interesting. I saw a presentation recently by an architect. I don't know if any of you ever attend the Rebuild Conference every year, October, held by IMEG and Immersion Design in Cincinnati. But there was a presenter there this year who sort of laid out all of the commercial building stock in Chicago. And, it was a bar graph, basically, of lumping buildings together by a decade of construction, going back to the 1880s, and looking at the average R factor, the insulation factor for each of these buildings. And the buildings built in the 1880s, interestingly, were very energy efficient on average. And they got progressively worse and worse and worse and worse until they got to the high point of terrible energy efficiency, which was the 50s. And then it gradually started to get a bit better until, now, like only just now, like in the 2020s, are we slightly superseding the buildings that were built in the 1880s. And that's because those buildings built in the 1880s were small windows. They didn't have any insulation per se, but the masonry, the brick, acts as a pretty effective thermal body, and so it stores heat or cool pretty effectively and gives it off slowly. And so, interesting, the older building stock is not as poorly performing as you might expect, but that mid-20th century stuff is terrible.
We trust our old buildings here.
Yeah.
We love our old buildings.
Excellent.
But yeah, I think probably that's the best way to get in contact with specific people. Like I can list a couple of people off the top of my head, but they would
Cool.
have the complete list. And I can send you an email for a couple of people I have like personal contact info with.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Not like their personal cell phone, but like I can let them know that you might be in contact at least. And then as far as presentation goes, we have a couple of good community spaces here. One would be the Norwood Community Center. We have the downstairs area that can seat, 100, 150. Not to say we have that many people, but maybe.
Yeah.
Especially if you would host it for the wider area.
Yeah.
And that's a very easy thing to rent. You can just contact the rec department and they'll rent it.
Just one thing to say about that is, depending on when you might look to do it, it may not be available because it's undergoing an energy efficiency upgrade.
There we go.
Oh, have you heard of Project 2030? There's some good stuff about that. But, yeah, so check with the rec department with that, and I can send you that information too.
Okay.
If that is not available, the library also has a meeting space. It's smaller, but it might work.
We also have the Worth Room.
Yes, the Worth Room at the pool or the community, or the rec center room.
The club room.
The club room, yeah. Those are all potential things. It depends on how many people you think are coming and.
Yeah, I guess it will depend. We'll have to, play it by ear and see,
Right.
what kind of response we get as we start to send out, invitations and that kind of thing. But I mean, I sort of imagine, in the 20 to 30 range being probably.
Yeah, so the Worth Room or the club room would be more than enough space for that.
Yeah.
So that's something I can send you the information for.
Okay.
Along with, I'm writing myself a note right now. Send information about that to Wyatt. If I don't write it down, it will escape my mind. About rentals and, yeah. Business to Wyatt. Excellent. But yeah, I think that would be a great thing for our business owners to know more about.
Wonderful.
And I can.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
I was going to ask, what about schools? Is there a kind of a central facilities contact for Norwood schools?
Yes, I can give you that information as well. I can't think of the right person off the top of my head, but I'll ask the school board members and they would know.
Probably John Peter.
That makes sense.
Would be the right person to talk to at the
As the
schools.
main person, yeah. So John Peter will have an email address I can give you for him, because they have actually just recently upgraded a couple of their schools for energy efficiency stuff,
Fantastic.
which is great, but I mean, maybe there's something else.
Well,
Or
that.
not all of them have been upgraded yet.
Well, and again, like I say, we're starting to catalog the successful projects that have already happened too,
Okay.
because we want to sort of lay a trail of breadcrumbs for others to follow. And so if there are, entities, whether they're private businesses or nonprofits or public entities like the schools that have successfully implemented a major energy efficiency upgrade or solar installation or something like that, we really want to help elevate that story so that other people can see it and say, oh, wait, if they can do it, why aren't we talking about that?
Or like, oh, they got it from this source, and here's what they did to
Right,
get it.
exactly. Who were the contractors that they used, and if they
Yeah.
had a positive experience, we want to help spread that info as well.
I feel like so much of finding those sources of grants or loans is just knowing where to start. There's so many places to look, and it's
That's right.
overwhelming if you are a smaller school district or business or even a medium business where you don't have someone dedicated to that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and we want to try and be that connective tissue between the prospective beneficiaries of all of these, especially now, the ecosystem of clean energy funding has just become has exploded in the last couple of years. And that's exciting, but it has also become very difficult to navigate and understand, how to make the right connections. And so we really want to try to help people connect the dots.
Anything else? Any other questions for Mr. King?
Well,
Or
thank
Wyatt?
you. I mean, I'm delighted that this was able to come together
Thanks.
so
Yeah,
quickly.
I'm glad that Candace reached out and it
Yeah.
just worked out that you could come. But yeah, I'll be in contact through email, and if there's anything else you need to know, you'll have my email, Candace's. We can get in contact with the mayor, Noah, and some of the other folks with Norwood City Schools as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah, have a great night, and I hope your wife just needs milk and not something else.
I'll find out what you need.
Yeah, that'll be fine. All right, so we have one other thing on the agenda, and that's just kind of a quick Montgomery Road plan update. I know that Noah and I had talked a little bit about that, but I figured it'd be good to just, because that's coming up soon, yay. In addition to the Elm Avenue news, maybe we can have a spot of brighter news
So
for that.
we do have good news on that.
Yes.
So there's There's several different Montgomery Road projects.
Yes.
They kind of all come together. The first is the pedestrian improvement project to improve pedestrian safety, running basically from the Norwood lateral south to Monroe. That will be primarily on the west side of the street, doing curb bump outs, expanding the sidewalk, improving drainage, street trees, lighting as it goes along down. We have $2.2 million in funding for that lined up from SORTA. For the paving project will go out to bid in February with a March or April start time. That is not a city-led project, that's an ODOT-led project, so they will handle all of that. They pay essentially 50% there. That is around a $3 million project. The city has secured 2 different rounds of SORTA funding for that for about $1.5 million. So assuming no major cost overruns there, the paving portion ought to be covered by the SORTA grants.
Great.
And then there's kind of a third component, which is a Montgomery Road Target Speed Study, which is also an ODOT program. This would not cost the city any funds. Essentially what ODOT is trying to do is to reduce speeds on the northern portion of Montgomery Road. So this is going essentially from Ross Avenue to the northern corp limit. And that would reduce travel lanes to 1 lane in each direction, turn lane in the middle, add some bike lanes to portions of that, sharrows to portions of that. The portions with sharrows tend to be the downhill. So that would start kind of near
Indian Mound Avenue-ish.
ish, yeah. That's kind of, it's right around there, just a little bit after that. There are a few homes on the west side of Montgomery Road that do not have off-street parking, so those would be able to park in that bike lane, which is not an ideal situation, but there's only so much space in that area. We are talking about basically 4 homes, kind of in the Moeller area. That is also where the road starts to go downhill, so those bicycles that may have to come out into the vehicular lane of traffic should be moving at a pretty decent clip because they're going downhill. So not as major of an issue. And this is the same thing that Cincinnati needed to do going toward Pleasant Ridge. So you'll see some of that parking in the bike lane. That would be a project that would come after the paving. And again, that's totally paid for by ODOT. That is an ODOT project.
Yes.
So that would come in probably 2026.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. I was happy to see the plans. I also wanted to note for the pedestrian safety stuff, the sidewalks are going to increase in width, so it's going to feel a lot safer. And with the addition of those street trees in between the sidewalk and the road, that's going to also like not only provide shade, but also make it safer for people to walk there. It's like a physical barrier, as well as an aesthetic thing. And these are native trees.
It's also worth pointing out that the size of the curb bump outs like at Sherman Avenue will be significantly larger. We'll be eliminating a right-hand turn lane there as well.
Yeah.
So the crossing distance is going to get quite a bit shorter.
Yeah, I think when we talked, it was like something from 80 feet to 60 feet, so a 25% reduction at those curbs. Which, if you drive by there, as I will, you'll be like, wow, a long way to walk.
It
It-
takes
I
me
have to-
15 seconds.
I have to scurry
on a fast-
to get through
Yeah.
if I'm not there right away when I walk there, so.
Are we still
Hustling.
adding the parking spots along
So
with the sidewalk extensions?
it'll basically be the same parking that's there now, but it'll be protected
Just-
parking.
Okay.
Yeah, so the bump outs will provide some physical protection to
Got
the
it.
parked cars. And the parked cars will
That makes
also be
sense.
protective of the pedestrians if someone would go off.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Right.
unfortunately has happened quite a bit in Cincinnati, random cars flying into buildings.
Yes.
Having some trees and cars basically provides some buffer for
Yeah.
people. Kind of sad to think about it that way, but
No,
It's a
not-
reality.
it is a reality.
Not every driver's a good driver.
Nope, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was excited to hear about that, especially the bike lanes up north and the fact that they're free to us. I love that part. I'm not going to say they're free. I know nothing is free, but
They are free to us.
they are free to us. So if anyone, when they start getting put in, tries to wonder why we're doing that instead of repaving, say, well, we could use this money for this or not at all. and that will be the truth.
Yeah, that is important, I think, to point out. This money is not available for anything.
Yes.
This is a study. ODOT is doing this across the state in different locations. In Montgomery Road, the northern portion was recommended as one of those places due to some of the accidents that have occurred there. So this will improve safety on that stretch of the road.
Yeah, and it'll be nice, since Pleasant Ridge already has bike lanes, it'll be a continuation of what is already there, as opposed to an abrupt cutoff right at our corp line. I mean, there still won't be as much down in the Kroger area, but that's something that in the future could be added if there's more sources of funding. And since it's just paint, that's a easy thing to add. I mean, for me, I would always love protected bike lanes. I know that's not in the cards, but I hope that one day it will be. Any questions about Montgomery Road stuff? Yeah, maybe end on a high note of,
Yeah.
hey, some good things are happening. A lot of good things are happening, along with some things that are slightly out of our control that stink.
Smith looks great.
Smith looks great.
It does.
Lateral
I
looks
just-
great, feels
yeah.
great.
Lateral's good.
I have
The-
heard good things.
Yes.
People are very excited about the paving.
Yes.
This is generally a thankless job, but at least people are excited about the streets.
It is worth being excited about. It
Yes.
turned out nice.
I look forward to the day when the response is uniformly positive and not also a little bit of, well, what about my street? That'll be a fun day, here in 30 years.
Just like
The roads only last 25, so.
Here, well, it's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Well, any other comments of general infrastructure, parks, et cetera? Candace and I went and planted some stuff at Burwood.
And on the 11th, there's the tree planting at Victory Park.
Yes, there is for Veterans Day, in honor of Veterans Day, and to kind of replace some of the oak trees that unfortunately have come down and will come down at Victory Park. There will be a tree planting of new oaks there
At 11 o'clock.
at 11 o'clock. Thank you. Yeah, I will be unable to attend because I will be in Phoenix, Arizona.
For a conference.
For a conference, which I think I can't come back. I'm sorry, but I will send my husband as my proxy.
I'll pour a bucket of water on the tree from you.
Please do. And tell them I would be there if I could. But if you can attend, that'd be great too. Yeah, Candace and I planted some stuff in Burwood in the area that is really annoying to mow. So maybe we won't have to mow it. So I'm gonna try to do some more stuff there over the rest of fall and mostly in spring, honestly, because it's gonna get cold. Nothing you can do at this point. But yeah, anything else? All right, well, we're about 55 minutes, that's enough. We're done. All right, thank you all, thank you, Steve, and we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you all.